I tried to pass an ordinance twice, and it was called, first of all, it's called the closed range ordinance. It didn't pass because I didn't work with the operators on that, and it was early in my tenure as a council member. The second time we tried to pass it, it was considered a safety ordinance to deal with livestock on right-of-ways. We need to develop this ordinance. We need to implement it. The issues we have right now with the current livestock are twofold now. It's because of compliance, and it's because of the fires. Okay? Compliance is a major issue. Right now, the grazing board is reestablished and took our authority over the livestock. And I think we need to work with both the ranchers and, the government and the families who have lost loved ones or been in accidents to look at a law that can address accountability for animals in trespass. It's a safety issue. The ordinance included an impound process, an investigation process for cutting fences. It was pretty comprehensive. We learned it from the Arapaho, we learned it from the Crow, but we couldn't get it passed because of politics. We need to look past politics. It's not a political issue, it's a safety issue. And the other issue about the dogs, I would look at, Land Authority did support the recent, about 5 years ago, the plan for a dog pound. Now we need an administration who can look at developing a program to sustain it and to educate our community. Remember, those things are cultural to us, horses and dogs. So we really need to keep our minds open to those cultural impacts that any kind of law may have. But I do agree with the safety of our community. Children getting bit by dogs. I think I would pass laws to address.
I think let's start with the horses out there all over town and out on the highways, and we've seen people that have died from these animals being out there. And Mr. Killsback is right. It's a huge safety issue, and we can't assign the sole obligation on the stock owner. We can't. We certainly can't blame the animals for being out there. I think that there's a number of things that we can do. One, we can look at the laws, but the laws are only good if they're enforced, and we all know that there's not enough police officers. I'd like to bring back the tribal range officers who would be able to get out here and round up these animals and hold them, and then charge the owner for them when they come to get them, and then sell the animals if the owner don't come get them within a certain amount of time. But they really have to be off the highways. The other thing is, I think since the idea of a closed reservation, that's the only thing that's going to work here. That puts the obligation a little bit on everybody. And the closed gate offense, you know, one of the things we're going to have to look at is the way these access to homes along the highway are designed, where they've got the fences that are sometimes left open. It's going to take a lot of planning because it's a huge problem, but it's resolvable. As for the dogs, I think that there needs to be a law in place where you cannot have unregistered dogs. Well, it has to go through the tribe, and that's the way the laws read right now is if there's a child support from off the reservation, in order for it to be enforced here, they have to file a petition in court, in our court, to get that enforced. And then we're required to hold a hearing on it, and then we make a decision based upon the evidence. There's no way that they can come on the reservation and enforce. Matter of fact, they used to do that when I got back on the bench in 2000, and they would just arbitrarily take somebody's wages, and we put a stop to that. We let them know that you got to go to the court, you got to go by our policies and procedures. And there was a little bit of a struggle, but they got the point eventually. So it's a matter of sovereignty. It's a matter of, we certainly want to do what's right for the children involved, but the legal arguments have to be resolved in our court.
I support child support because I pay child support. You know, you can look at it as a sovereignty question, but I look at it as a issue of our values. Okay, values for our young parents, and the fact that they need to be responsible to take care of their children. And if that just happens to be financially, then they need to do it. And there needs to be an effort by our government to address this in a moral way also. And I think that can be a role of our government. I do agree that they should go through the proper channels, but we can develop our own child enforcement law. We can develop our own office that can receive funding from AFA. Okay, the AFC, I mean, Agency for Families and Children, which is part of HHS. We're one of the few tribes that isn't taking advantage of this with child support enforcement. The Arapaho tribe last year had a whole conference on it, on child support enforcement. And I think it becomes, like I said, more of a values issue for our young parents and adults, because that's where we should be obligated to take care of our children if we make them. I'm talking especially to our young men too. And that's how I would address it, but also there's opportunities there through the HHS, Health and Human Services Agency, for families and children to provide that. And we're one of the few tribes that doesn't take advantage of that. Education question. I'm currently on the ad hoc board for the tribal schools, and I was part of this partnership that the Boys and Girls Club received a grant from. I went to a place in Harlem called the Harlem's School Zone, Children's Zone, which to me was mind-blowing. They planted seeds 20, 30 years ago to create an educational pipeline to ensure that their kids are successful, their community are making leaders and viable members of the community. I think that's got to be, again, a tribal goal and a vision. I would create or help look at a vision of creating a pipeline from Head Start, because we have a program, our schools, and our tribal college with 2 tracks. One track geared at education, which of course we all know about. Go get educated, come back, help your people. I guess I'm an example of that. But what about the huge crack that our students fall through, which is those who don't go to college? Let's create a vocational track, a track where they can become skilled workers and be certified in some trade. You know, we used to have programs like TARO. We do have a program, Workforce Investment Act, the OJTPA program, that does these types of services. We need to network our programs to be part of this pipeline and also provide social services for our kids as they go up this pipeline. They call that wraparound services. Let's help them with the parents. Let's help them with transportation. Let's teach them about budgeting their money. Let's look at all the other social programs that entail educating a Cheyenne all the way to success, whether that's college or whether that's becoming a skilled, certified worker with a trade.
The education, formal education and career guidance really needs to start when the child starts school. What we're doing is we rely upon the schools to provide all the guidance, all the education, and then we grumble when they don't do it the way we like, or we see some bad things going on, and then we get outraged. The way I believe is, let's get involved early. Let's get involved in a partnership with the school, and let's provide some of these guidance. And one of my goals really is to initiate a career guidance center. And the way this works is to start working with the youth at an early grade, but really start focusing on them when they get to middle school, because that's when they start losing interest in school. And this is where we want to work with them to cover some of the things about retention in the schools, find out what some of the other issues are of how we can help them remain. But at the same time, we want to guide them towards a career, and we want them to know what's required to get into that career. A lot of kids give up because they don't know where to go. They're not getting that support, or they're not getting that guidance. And it may very well be that some don't go to education, higher education. It may be that they go to vocational schools. But all this has got to be, keep this in mind, this has got to be done with the idea that we want these youth to come back. So we need to be planning, as we work with these kids, we need to be planning where they're going to fit in when they come back. How are we going to be able to accommodate them 5, 10, 15 years? One of the things I've noticed in Housing Authority is that the houses that are being designed were for large families. I mean, we've got 3-bedroom and 4-bedroom, there's some 5-bedroom homes, and these are really nice. But the goal is to accommodate large families, but we're missing something, because as they grow up, they may move out. Now, if you look around, the majority of our people are younger people. We've got singles, young couples, and small families. So why aren't we creating more affordable housing for this segment of people? And there's a lot of housing designs out there that are more affordable, that are easier to take care of, that easier to heat, easier to pay for, and they're smaller. But why is it that we have to live in these great big homes? Now, in order to do this, this requires planning, and it requires zoning, which I'm a big proponent of. It also requires designing. I like the design of building houses in what they call pods, which are like in circles, creating small village communities, kind of like the way our villages used to be years back. There was some wisdom to that design. So we need to start thinking smaller, more cost-effective, and let's start taking care of the majority of our people who are the younger, smaller families.
Despite housing's political implications, I would look at working with housing in their current goal. They have a current goal right now of doing these tax credit projects, which was done to rebuild the shoulder blade complex. But you look at what they want to do with it, and it includes some planning. We've been doing land use planning for the last 1.5 years now. Land Authority, the committee I chair, and the housing group, we invited them. We're looking at the idea of apartment complexes in each district to address a housing shortage. But we're also looking at another avenue that includes home ownership. Now, home ownership is part of economic development. And if we could increase home ownership on a reservation, that also allows for lending to occur on our trust lands. And I think that with that idea, what you have is I know not a lot of people can qualify for home ownership, but you have the rent to own, which is a new policy that we helped housing developed with the houses up there on Ashland Flats. So you see younger families starting to become homeowners. And that's a big deal in Indian country. And I would look at improving that and ensuring that we could have home ownership, and that would require the building of new homes. The other ideas, I think, with the housing issue, I know you talked about building more houses. I'm one of the people who thinks housing is an entitlement. I think we gave up our land, we signed some treaties, and part of those, besides healthcare and education, was housing. I mean, they pretty much killed all our buffalo, and that was our shelter. So I'm one that looks at housing as an entitlement and want to see housing for every Cheyenne.